Hello everyone and welcome to the next part of this stream. Hope you can hear me okay. Just had a movement of the camera, so now you should be able to see the whole image so far. Look, shadow puppets. So this is what we were working on earlier, and as you can see there's a couple of changes where I've just refined a little bit of the detail. Basically at my lunch at work today I was able to spend half an hour just playing around. And now I'm going to take the big, huge leap and start to apply the fluid media, of which I'm excessively nervous about. Really nervous. Whew. So I'm going to start with, I don't actually know, I'm going to start with the back bit. I'm going to use an array of brushes, of course my SAA, and I'm going to start by applying the ink dry. So that says a dry brush, slightly stiff but dry. Actually the stiff brush should work better. So it's going to be a dry brush and push the ink up. And I want to see if I can create kind of a ragged edge. So here's my ink, lid screwed on, and give it a good shake to make sure it hasn't separated. In cold climates you will find your ink does separate, which is annoying. So I've got my little tray. This is a old Ferrero Rocher box. So Mum ate the chocolates and I got the tray. I think that's a fair consolation. And always make sure your brush is clean. So for me, I get stray cat hairs on here. I don't know how the cat hairs get on the brush, but they do. So let's see, dip it in the ink, and literally I'm just going to sit that on the tray while I put the lid back on. Put that over there. A little bit of ink on my hands, right. So I'm just going to use this tray like a little palette, so I'm just going to work off a little bit of the ink. I don't want it overflowing. Right, here we go. And I've got to go in that direction because that's where I want the texture to be. Jeez. Oh, I hate doing this. Okay, maybe this wasn't a good idea. Right. Come on. Bold brush strokes, got to be bold. And I'm going to go over it because I've got this edge, which is the packaging. Come on, me, I can be bolder than this. I can see that this image would actually work even better blown up in size again. So instead of being a small image, pushing the whole thing to kind of AO size will probably work even better. So maybe keeping this part maybe a bit bigger and then having far more length heading upwards, just to give emphasis on the figures. Okay, there's going to be some patching up done. Because I don't want too much curvature to show. Pick up a little bit of the ink. There's still a bit of ink on the brush. Okay, so I'm going to need to apply some more. And just what's happened is where I've been a little bit shy, I've got big chunks of black, but the ink's drying very quickly on the palette, so I'm going to need to water it down just a touch. Just getting quick spritz, just work that in. Wookie. I'm kind of glad I'm not doing this in Clickfing ink because that would be drying even faster. I do want a little bit of texture with this black. I don't want it to be 100% smooth. But at the same time I don't want it to be chunky in the wrong places. I do need that line there to be smooth though. Try that. I'm not used to working with big brushes. I'm sorry if my head keeps on popping in the shot. I'm trying to keep it out of it. I'm much used to fine detail. In fact, I'm not used to using a brush at all. This is very alien to me. I am a coloured pencil, graphite kind of person. Using a brush is not comfortable. But I'm going to give it a go. Spritz. Just keep that a little bit looser. Worky, worky, worky. Back forward, back forward, back forward. Oh God, I got too much on the brush. Mind you, shadows have got different tones in them. There's no such thing as kind of a pure grey shadow. If you look at a shadow really carefully, you'll see there are dark parts and light parts to it. Actually, having a rough edge there looks quite neat. I think because the paper is dry, that's what's caught me out. As you can see, this time the ink is a lot darker, whereas before, when I was practicing, the ink was a much lighter colour. I think that was probably because there was more wet on wet. Right. We can do this. It's not rocket science, it's art. Actually, it works better with the darkest point in the middle because that's this kind of central area. So that feels a bit more comfortable. What I'm going to do is, let's put it in a wash pot. Start that cleaning. This is one of those days when I wish I had a rigger brush. Riggers are really long, the really long ones. As the name suggests, designed originally for painting rigging on boats. This brush is quite good for fine detail. Just pull the ink back in the direction. What I did at lunch was I went round heads with the 0.5 pencil just to confirm where I wanted the shapes to go. Some of the ink is sitting on top of the graphite, which is quite funny. get the feeling I'm actually going to get some layers here of different darks, because as the ink dries and I'm adding another layer on top, a bit like using marker pens, there should be subtle marks left. If I can do subtle. There we go. Just going to pull that back up. So I can actually get some texture into the background. Ooh, exciting. Oh. Nearly forgot. Oh, I'm pushing the drawing far up the thing. Right. Just sort out this line over here. Just tidy up a little bit just here. Sorry, I'm getting completely in the shot there. Ah, you can see me, oh god. My apologies, I do not want to be in this stream. You can see my hands, my arms, but not me. I look alright because I'm literally just out of work. I'm just tidying up that little bit. Right. So that's the first part. So next onto the hands. I'm going to stick with this small brush for the hands. I'm going to loosen the ink up a little bit. So from that one brush full, I've got on 1 or 2 squirts, I've got a really good amount of ink now. This will certainly do for probably the whole image. Here's those long hands. And if you're wondering why I've curved the thumb, it's because my thumb is pretty curved. So I wanted to kind of replicate that. I'm just exaggerating the fingers so that they don't look quite so human. There's one. Okay, just stepped back from the image, had a look at it again. Feeling a little bit more confident. Not great, but teeny weeny kind of yellow polka dot bikini confident. I'm going to go for this side. Hang on, I've just got to turn around and work this one out. I'm facing that way. That hand goes there, check. And then that hand. Yeah. I don't know why, but I'm having massive self-doubts about the angle of the hands. I do have huge confidence issues anyway, so this is not helping. We'll pick her outside. Take off a little bit of that ink. I think I've got too much on there. Just letting that ink dry for a few minutes. Get some more on the brush. I'm going to add the eyes in. Yeah, I think I was tempted to leave the eyes as pencil, but I think they need to be more stark. So the pure black is definitely going to add that starkness and rawness to it. Parts of this image can be subtle at the end of the day and soft. So there is a little bit of softness here and there. But other parts I want to be sharp, aggressive and pushing. That's why I think I'm probably going to stick to black and white. I'm tempted to add red in, but I'm not 100% sure. Once again, it's something I've got to have a darn good think about. Right, this is going to be the hand that's further forward. Feels like too much ink on there. When you're holding a brush and it's got too much ink on, you can sometimes feel when it's got too much on. And it's not good to put an overloaded brush onto a drawing, because if you get too much ink it can go everywhere. I could have used acrylics for this. I went with the ink because I feel a little bit more comfortable with it. Though acrylics, yeah, you do have a longer drying time depending if you mix Floetrol or Liquitex Basics stuff in there. Whereas the Indian inks, Calligraphy inks, dry a lot faster. So every single mark that I'm making, I've got to be 100% sure of what I'm making. This edge is annoying me for some reason. I think it's because part of my problem is I like clean, sharp, tidy, neat. I'm not used to doing rough edges. In fact, this whole background piece, I should have masked off my figures thinking about it, and I should have just slapped a big brush over there to get some texture out, and I shouldn't be covering up the rough edges. I'm such a coward with this sort of thing. I need to be bold and experiment and test and push these boundaries. And after all the great artisty people who have done it. Actually, I wonder how many, I'm not too sure on this, moments Van Gogh had. He certainly didn't have one when it came to his ear. yeah, starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. I have included Apple into the shopping basket. I haven't put much detail in here yet. Oh, sorry about if you can hear any noise. Sorry about that. They're doing cups of tea downstairs. I've got mine up here. I don't really want to even though this is the foreground, I don't know if I want to over clutter it. I might simplify a lot of the shapes. Part of me is very, very tempted to put some maggots and stuff in, but I don't really have the time to go into that sort of detail. As you'll notice, the hands aren't 100% anatomically correct. This is because I'm just over exaggerating them to make them look more intimidating. I went for the palm towards you look instead of the clenched hand, more because of how they come at you in the real world. So when people are reaching, you don't always reach like that. You reach like that to wrap your hand around the foot. It's a slow motion, but you'll see that kind of movement, open and close. So I'm catching the moment as the hand is open, heading towards. I see it so much at work. It's kind of ingrained in my little head. The hands are extremely expressive. You can do so much with them. We can talk with our hands by using sign language. We can grasp, we can let go, we can throw, we can bend them in funny directions if you're into that sort of thing. And hands through history, and especially art history, are very, very, very important. And very, very symbolic. Look at that amazing painting I can't remember who did it, where it's the chappie reaching out and the finger gestures. I think it's a chap reaching out to God or somebody important. The hand gestures are so strong and poignant. So that's part of also why I wanted to bring hands into this, not just because I see them as looming towards me at great speed as persons after the bargain, but because of also there is symbolism within that movement. Now my little guy over here, I do want to put in, and he's going to be extra hard. I'm going to take a lot of the ink off of the brush so I can get it really fine. And I am going to leave his little eyes white. So here's the opposite. Looks like a little stick figure. Ribs. Comes. Come on. See, our policy at work is if somebody chucks food at you and says reduce this, even if it's like had its first reduction or it's on the day, we can't do it because that would show favouritism and we're not allowed to show favouritism. So it makes life very difficult. And it's not as if you can actually have the rules posted up somewhere for customers to read before they start shopping. Ink a little bit further. There's our little dude. brush. Right, just let that dry 2 seconds. Serious cup of tea drinking there. Right, let's pull that away from the back. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So, part of me says we could fill in the background with a big bold colour. I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to take the focus away from the 4 figures by sticking something really garish behind it. Oh, diddly diddly diddly. Right, let's get some detail in the shopping cart. If in doubt, have a look at a different area. Right, so for this, so originally I was working in the 3H and the 8B. So I've just got a 0.5 lead of 2B. To be or not to be? That's the question. And I'm literally just going to add in a little bit of detail here. Because of the texture of the paper, it does mean that I don't get the sharpest of marks. I can feel that's too loose. There we go. Always happens. There, that's better. For the shopping cart, I'm tempted to put more marks in. With items that are in the foreground, you can get away by putting in hatching and cross-hatching marks, big things. You can't get away so much when it comes to the background because your point of view would be different. You can't see that intricate detail with an item that's further away from you. So that's just something to bear in mind. So it'd be like if I was drawing a dragon or, you know, kind of fantasy stuff that I do quite a lot. If I did the dragon up front here, I could do every single scale perfectly. If the dragon's a teeny weeny little 5-inch figure back here, no, I cannot put all that detail in. If I do, it'll overload the image. There's just one of those things. Still got all the reduced stickers to add to this one. I'm quite tempted to leave my working lines in here, quite simply as it adds a bit of texture. In fact, bear with me, there's something I can show you on this. I finally got my art equipment organised. I have a drawer for pencils, a drawer for acrylics and a drawer for other stuff. This is the Faber-Castell 9000 art set, something I mentioned in one of my previous videos while working on this drawing. Now, you've seen how dark the 8B in the Derwent, this was a Derwent graphic one, comes in. It's moderately dark, and textured paper does make a difference. Now, if I can find it, because I'm sure I've got one in here. 5B, 9B, oh I love my 9B. 8B. So this is the 8B. The graphite is very different. You can really get a sharp ouchy point on that one. As you can see, I use it a lot, so it's worn down quite a bit. So, same amount of pressure. keeps its sharpness far longer. I'll go over that a couple of times and then just come over this one just to make sure we're playing fair. So there's quite a big difference. Actually, I just realised you guys probably can't see that. Bear with me. So that's the Derwent, and that's the Faber-Castell. I've still got a pretty sharp edge, and this one I've got a pretty blunt edge. They're also difference in thickness of the graphite, so the Derwent is more kind of rounded, whereas the Faber-Castell is more refined. In fact, I'm really tempted to just go for it with the Faber-Castells. Yeah. Right, bear with me, we'll pop back out, hopefully. Whee! About as good as I can get it. Now I just want to show you that, depending on your pencils that you buy will depend on your effects that you can get. But also something handy to know, if you're going to do dark areas, don't just go straight for your darkest colour. Start with a light colour. So for instance the 2B, where I've been working on here, and matte and layer up your colours. So where I've got the 2B, and then say I could go for a 6B and then bring up an 8B, and it means that you'll get a really nice gradient. And yeah, I love my favourites. So I'm going to have to bring them in. Normally for just sketch work I wouldn't use these, but I've got 2 tins. Let's be bold. So oh, this bit needs a extra bit layering. Hold on to that. I certainly don't find that I have to sharpen the Faber-Castells quite as much as I do my other pencils, which is even nicer. And with the 0.5 leads, you still do need to sharpen them, so the trick is to just hold it at an angle and put it on some paper, and they'll give you a very slight edge, which means that you can get much more fine detail. So I'm just doing these little blocks. And I can change the shapes by adding shadows in different areas. If you're cross-hatching and doing any of those marks, don't just rush them randomly. Keep control of them. Don't go completely and utterly nuts. You don't want your hatching to go outside of your lines, or if you do, then wait. But if you want to keep the control, just keep yourself in mind of where you're putting your lines. I mean, a lot of people use their wrists very lightly, so they don't have the hand resting on the paper. But for me, I'm so used to having my hand resting on the paper. Dark area here. I can add in some slightly thicker lines just to push a couple of those shadows. feeling happier. We're getting a bit more woohoo. I'm not a confident artist in any way. I have so many kind of confidence issues. I don't trust what I do. I mean, I look at so many other people's work and I'm just like, wow, I want to be like that. But that doesn't help me, because I've got to find my own style and ways of doing things. It's okay to copy other artists' styles, or attempt to, but you're restricted on what you can learn from doing that. So it's definitely a good thing to find your own style. And sometimes you have to copy techniques and styles just to learn from them. And maybe even figure out how things are done. Where did I just put that pencil? Duh. Where are we going? We're going downwards, I think. Right, pencil sharpener. I suppose I should really sharpen this. Oh, crumbs. I've got about 7 pencil sharpeners on the go right now. And this is because different pencils have different woods and the blades cut differently. I've also got a windy up one, which I've got to sharpen the blades on. But yeah, I mean, my Prismacolor pencils have a completely different sharpener to my Polychromos, which have a different sharpener to my Luminances. This means that the wood casing doesn't split so much because the blades aren't hacking too deep into them, and it also gives me the right sharpness that I want on the pencil. I actually went to an art shop once and tested out pretty much a whole tub of sharpeners. I just said to them, can I please play with these sharpeners? And it's like, okay, yep, just don't overwork them. And yeah, that's the only way I could find a decent one. So, base layer of 2B, followed by 5B, followed by 8B. Well, I haven't actually put any bottles of Coke or anything like that in here. So I need a wine bottle or some sort of bottle in here. I can go with them the bananas. Yeah, the bag of nuts is down here somewhere. So it's apple, banana, bag of nuts. I think I'm definitely more comfortable with drawing organic materials and subjects than man-made ones. I just find man-made things a bit too stark, whereas organic items and things from nature, I like the curvatures, the different colours, and there's always a story behind those things. So you can look at a massive woodland and think, how old is that? How big are those trees? And you can kind of imagine it in the medieval time, when, say, Verders would have their pigs feeding through there, and yeah, Robin Hood kind of things going on. Whereas I look at a telegraph pole and I think, gosh, that's ugly. I get the idea that it's there for communication, but and it's made of wood, and a woodpecker and a beaver might get confused by it. But I don't see it as a point of interest. It's a pole. Whereas find me a molehill, and I'm in heaven. Kind of which molehill's got the mole under it, you know? Nearly there. This is a little bit of a laborious bit, but it's a bit more fun. Could be worse. I'll admit I have struggled to research some of the people that I've been asked to research because the subject matter has not been to my taste. A lot of the stuff isn't at all what I would call appropriate or even art. So a few weeks ago I had a debate online with an art group and actually asked the question of where is the line, the borderline between pornography and art. And it was very well argued on both sides, but nobody could give a definitive answer. Though some things are still excessively taboo and others aren't. And I mean, it's not subjects that I want to see. I mean, I don't see the point in having a drawing or a piece of artwork that you can't physically hang in a house or in a gallery and really enjoy. Some of the stuff that I've had to look at for this research side of things, nowadays with modern society and views towards pornography and things like that, I would probably be arrested for, in all honesty. And it does make me suddenly think of what is the mind behind a person who becomes an artist. I think some artists are affected emotionally by things that happen around them. So is it Franz Klein? He was clearly affected by the Great Depression in America, then the World Wars, and all the kind of crisis in the country, in America, during that time. It had a profound effect on him, and that really does show in his artwork. It's very confusing artwork when you straight away look at it, but when you think of the mental state of the artist, you can understand it. And since it's therapy for post-traumatic stress, almost, I'd say, the artwork. And in fact, for stress, doing art, no matter what, is really quite good. It relaxes you, gets your brain thinking of other things. Even if you just spent a day drawing a circle every day or a couple of circles in a line, you probably find yourself far more relaxed afterwards than at the beginning, especially if you don't take it seriously. Because art, if you're happy and you're drawing, it shows through your work. If you're depressed and you're drawing, that'll show through your work. I mean, a few days ago I was so tired I could barely hold a pencil, and the drawings that I did were not very good. But right now I'm still partially pumped up from work. 8 hours of laborious labour. I've had a decent meal inside me. On my second cup of tea. So we're in quite a good place. But tomorrow morning when I wake up, I think probably about 5 o'clock I'll be up tomorrow morning. Get a couple of cups of tea down me and I'll really be pumped and ready to go. And that's my mornings are my best times for drawing and writing up analogies and bits. So probably tomorrow morning before I do my next work shift, I'll be writing up about 3-4, maybe more pages of findings, because that's about my best time to start doing that work. I've also found doing live streams, no matter how boring they are and how irritating I am, they help motivate me, as I struggle to get motivated sometimes. So the fear of having an audience kind of keeps me going and makes me want to show people what can be done. Tea, need a cup of tea. It's becoming lukewarm tea. I have asked my parents if I could have a kettle in the study so that I don't have to keep on going downstairs to get tea. I've been told thoroughly no. Not even a travel kettle. So unfair. How can I feel inspired if I'm dehydrated? So for these bits I'm literally just going to do random marks. Really clever. A signature. Right, on to the 5B, because I've put down all my 2B marks. I'll quickly go over just a couple of bits, just to push out some of the shadows. Banana. I remember the phase of straight bananas. I miss them. And problem was when you threw them they didn't come back to you. Not having to push that hard with the pencil at all. That's why I love these pencils. Oh, crumbs. I found a tray. So now I'm just going to define just a couple of little bits, and then I'm going to use the 5B and the 8B just to rework the actual trolley itself. And I can get away with having a little bit of light everywhere on all of these products, because when you're in a shop you've got light coming downwards, but if you next time you go into your superstore, you'll notice you have kind of some lights will go downwards, spotlights coming in at angles, and then in some shops you even have underlighting coming upwards, so the light can be bouncing from any single direction at all, which makes kind of plastic very, very reflective and annoying. Right, let's just redo that trolley. I am going to bring more detail into the figures once I've got this little bit done. A couple of my lines have definitely smudged, which is slightly irritating, but I did want a couple of soft lines here and there. You should be able to see the difference that adding that extra shade and that extra tonal layer has done. This part should now be a bit more kind of pop outwards. And you'll notice that I've made sure that my angles from the top have matched kind of the same sort of angles that I'm using all the way through. Which is pretty much when I'm stood at a trolley or trying to crouch and hide behind a trolley. This is kind of the view that you get. Right, the 8H. Sorry, the 8B. I hate it when I get this wrong. I'm only going to add this in small areas because I just want to push only certain shadows. I'm just going to add a little bit of detail onto the handlebar. Oh, geez. Right. Considering that hit the floor, I did pretty well. Didn't chip it at all. Yay! These are quite a robust pencil. They can certainly take a beating from the floor. Right. That feels like a nice full trolley. Just going to add a little bit of tonal variation just inside this bit. Let's bring that down. And up we go, hopefully. Oh, that's part of my arm straight over. Right. So we've got the stark black, the kind of, sorry, oh gosh, my stomach's making funny noises. The kind of faceless people, hands reaching out, the trolley full of detail. So the biggest area of detail is the foreground, the midground's got midground detail, and the background has got no detail pretty much. So I'm now going to add a little bit more detail onto the figures. Let's use the Faber-Castells. I know I'm going to get a better result with them. The thing is, I'm starting to really enjoy doing this image, which means that I'm going to be putting more and more effort in. So now my job is not to overwork the drawing. What's this one? This is the 5B. Another nice thing about these pencils, it's not just in metallic, the number of it, they've also got it in matte on the other side, so makes it easier to read. I'm going to use a 5B here. I'm not going to put tons in, but just enough to make them clearly stand apart as individuals. I don't want them completely white. If you're looking at clothing and it looks white, don't be deceived. White isn't white. Think of a polar bear. Polar bear looks white, doesn't it? But it's actually a black bear. Underneath all that fluff, it's black. And if you really look very carefully, you'll note there's creams and all sorts of colours in there. So you can't just kind of say, oh, that's a white dress. There'll be blues, there could be pinks. So the technique where I say about getting a bit of paper, punching a hole in it, and then putting the hole on the bit of colour that you're trying to work out, that's where that technique comes in. It helps you isolate the area and actually see what colour is really there. Otherwise your eye's just going to fill in the detail, and that's not going to help. As you can see, I have put the money in. I might put gold there. Metallic gold? I do not know. These figures' bodies don't really have any form. There's something there. My left isn't strong enough. Definitely have a go at practicing drawing with your left and right hand. I can just about write my name with my left hand, but I do need to practice more with it. A bit more definition up here. Where's that smudgy tool? Let's try a different texture. Just using a little bit of charcoal that's on the tool, so I get a very, very, very light grey tone. I don't want too much hatching detail in these figures because they're further away than the trolley is. Take the 8B, 8B, and just going to define a couple of areas, naming these two in the middle. I'm just going to do a little bit of the outline as well. I don't want the trolley merging in to them. Although they stand together, they are all individuals. A little bit of that black ink, which hopefully hasn't dried, and just add in a couple of tiny areas of a really dark colour. The only reason I'm doing this is that I quite often find that if I've got something in part of a drawing, then I need to replicate it further in the drawing. So if you've seen me do animals and say I used a red on a red setter, so I actually did put red into a red setter as well as the blues and purples, you wouldn't just see that colour in the nose, say, you'd see it replicated elsewhere on the body. And I do that to make sure that the image is balanced, so there's not kind of big blotches of colour here and there. Well, it carries through the drawing, so wherever your eye moves and follows the drawing, you see it throughout. Though in this image, yeah, I do want the black to be the biggest impact. But because I'm putting in small amounts, hopefully it will help keep the image balanced. So I do want this image quite stark, but not too insanely stark. A couple of spits and spots down there. That feels more comfortable. Yeah, that feels better. The money, still thinking of accentuating that, because that's part of the key thing of the greed. Apart from them reaching to grab the stuff, they're the ones with the money. They don't physically need it, but they're still grabbing for it, whereas the little matey boy over here doesn't have the money. I'm going to need gold. Gold, liquid gold. Not literally, I'm not that rich. Gold. I'd love to use my Spectrum Noir gold fluid pens with this, but because I can't trust them not to pour ink out absolutely everywhere, I'm going to see if I can do this with a gold pen. I think my Pilot pen would probably be a lot better, but we can work with this. And then I can add the teeny weeny little pile of gold coins to his hand. God, I keep on leaning on the drawing, which at this stage is not a good idea. Marker wise, I'm always used to drawing with Copics and high quality markers. I've tried the Spectrum Noir markers. Some days I can work with them, some days it's a disaster. You know what? I'm going to put gold here. It's a gamble. I'm going to put golden stalk on the apple. Right, green, what high? I want subtle. No one does subtle like a Copic. So this is YG11, which is very, very light colour. Because it's watercolour paper, it can take the ink very well. It'll actually soak it up like a sponge, hence I'm only dabbing it on here. If I put the full pen on there, I'm going to lose a lot of ink. And markers, like the ink, once you start putting them onto dry media, they do start to, it starts to pull too much ink out of the nib. So you have to be a little bit sparing with those. Well, let's put a couple of dots on the apple. So there's that continuation of colour. I think it's technically called spot colouring. My only main thing is that, in a sense, I wonder should I put shadow over here, but then that would chop off my little matey boy there. I'm going to leave it like that. Having a think, step back and think. Right, I've taken off a little bit of one of my putty rubbers. And I'm just going to strip back a couple of the smudges just to soften up and make a couple of edges a bit more neat. Take out a couple of lines which are a bit too strong. Just put some highlights in. I need to get a refill for my Tombow Mono eraser. I ran out and didn't realise I hadn't got a refill. That's about the best high detail eraser you can get. Just take out a couple of the building lines. Actually, there's a thought. What happens if I put the eraser over the ink? Let's do some experimenting. Because there's graphite underneath. It's sticky, I'll tell you that much. Just lifting a little bit off. Let's take a little bit off. Just add some texture in there. That's fun. Okay, so I'm going to call that image done, and this is what I'm going to be submitting for my assignment. So to go over what my assignment needed. Right. So the assignment said, that's the wrong piece. I was reading the right bit, wasn't it? Okay, what sort of scale we use for drawing? Well, I've started my sketch in A4, gone to A3. Check. What support and what mediums I've used? Ink, pencil, putty rubber is still a medium because it's been used to apply, smudge and remove. Which exercise was the most enjoyable? Well, that's the William and Henry Moore one. What subject matter forms in the sketchbook lend themselves to the investigation? That's my preliminary sketches with fluid media, enabled and in pen. Which context study point do you feel most enthusiastic about following up and responding to? The William Blake and Franz Klein was quite interesting. Then Centre Tutor. So, the spend time workday, reflect on the key learning points in your log. Use this all information to make a final assignment piece. For this piece, you should be drawing using fluid media either solely or in conjunction with dry media. A bit like Tracy Emin and Louise Borges something did. So, I think I've covered everything. I've used fluid medium in conjunction with pencils. I've been inspired by other artists and their way and style. I've maybe not been as bold as I could have, but when you've got such open assignments, it's very difficult to really know what to put on the paper. That's the challenge. Right. So we're going to call that done. And now I've just got to write up all my findings. So thank you very much to everybody who's joined me for today. It's been very appreciated, as always. You guys do make my life worthwhile. And I hope this has inspired you guys to have a go and get out there and get drawing and finding the inspiration all around you. And if you're thinking of going into higher education, try. Art is in the eye of the beholder. I met what one person sees as beautiful, another person will see as horrendous. You can't get it right, you can't get it wrong. But as long as you keep on practicing and you learn through your mistakes, you learn through things that work, you will develop and become your own individual artist. And that's what's important, is your own interpretation. So, till next time everyone, take care, all the best, and happy drawing to you all.